Okay, so today I wanted to talk to you about the film Chaos Walking, which I love so much. It's not like it has so many mistakes in terms of like the character development and plot and lots of plot holes and stuff like that. However, I still love it dearly. We don't have many examples of scriptwriters or even writers like because this film was based upon a book. When writers have come up with such a unique idea that successfully externalizes the internal, which is basically like the ultimate goal of every writer. We try to find a way through genre, through character, through whatever we can imagine to externalize the internal problem so that we could connect with the character, so that we could follow his journey, so that we could be like, oh, so now a criminal becomes a saint and we would be on this journey with him, and we could be in our own lives could be like, oh, I should change this and that. So, it's sort of like taking the audience on this journey with your characters. And I feel like the whole concept of chaos walking, of how every man's thought is just externalized, is brilliant. It's not through voiceovers, it's not through any text, super on the screen. It's just through the concept, which is really unique, which is rare, and that's basically why I love this film, and I wanted to talk to you about this one. So at the beginning of the film, we have the quote, "The noise is a man's thoughts unfiltered." That's basically sort of like they give us the introduction of the to the film and what the noise is what it is, and what is gonna be throughout the whole film. I feel like it's not a cheesy way to do it. It's still kind of, it works. I also, it's kind of cute that they call it the noise, because whenever we're thinking something, it's just like it's the noise. It's blah 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 blah. It's not. We never normally live in this quiet space. So the first time I seen this film, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why the meditation exists. That's why there is Vipassana training, because you learn to control your thoughts, or maybe if not control them, at least to limit them or to quiet them down. So that's why all this like monkey mind, you have to quiet it down, you have to let it pass, let it wash over you, let it go. Don't just observe, don't be an active participator in this monkey mind. So I generally kind of love this idea of trying to quiet it down, and how like meditation helps it do it, blah blah blah. So in this film, they've given this kind of noise to every man except for the mayor, who is technically also has the noise, but he has learned to control it, which is like, it's such an interesting take on that. There is a man who's learned how to control it. He spent many years achieving this state. So why don't you? It's like, that's my biggest problem, because I work like with scriptwriters, and I'm constantly like trying to improve any material that I come upon. So I'm like, why don't you dive into that? That's such an interesting point, right? The mayor can control his thoughts to the extent that he's like, something is really happening in the village, and he's just sitting there, and there is no thoughts whatsoever. So it's really interesting, like, how did he achieve that? Why don't, like, show us some methods, show us some manifestation like techniques, like what did you use? So yeah, that's just like one point, but it's still kind of interesting concept. You're already hooked into this film, and you're like, what's going on? And so later on, as the film develops, we see a little bit of manifestation of the thoughts. So at the beginning of the film, Todd said, well, he doesn't say it, he thinks snake, 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 and the snake appears and attacks like whatever the character was. So that's an interesting, that's an interesting concept, because literally if you listen to any gurus and stuff like that, they would say to you that thoughts are literally the manifestation tool onto the life that you desire. So it's like, whatever you think, that's your truth. For example, if I think I'm poor, because that's my belief, that's what I believe in. if I think I'm rich, then I'm rich, because that's just whatever I'm saying out loud, I'm probably thinking, and what I'm thinking is probably my truth that comes from my heart. Also, did you know that 70 or 80% of our thoughts are repeating day after day? So you almost never have new thoughts. So whatever day you had yesterday, there are 70 or 80% chance that you're going to have the same day today, simply because you're thinking the same thoughts. You're like, I need to find a way, I need to find more projects, I need to find the way to earn more money, I need to find love, I need to find blah, blah, blah. So it's like it's constantly circling around you. And just like in the film, the noise, it's just there and it manifests into your life. So again, externalizing the internal, writers have done a great job just giving us these kind of how thoughts could manifest. They just, like in real life, it could take not just days, it could take months, years to manifest, to actually be brought to life in a physical appearance. In film, because we have, as scriptwriters, we have the ability to create whatever world we would like to, especially in sci-fi genre or in fantasy genre. The rules are whatever you make them. So here, whatever the character thinks appears immediately. So I love it so much. Again, it's not used in any way. It's just like, just characters are thinking about it and it appears. Why don't you use it? Like, for example, I would have probably, because it's such, like, honestly, it's just the whole concept is just insanely delicious and interesting. And I would love to dive a little bit more into that and just like ask them, okay, so if I think about the house, could I be living potentially in the imaginary world? Could I be like talking with that people? It's like there are so many ways it could have gone, and I feel like they didn't explore neither. Well, anyway, just like my inner critic is just like constantly exploring that. So Todd uses the phrase "I'm Todd Hewitt" to hide his noise, which is truly brilliant. It comes back to the Buddhist monks who have been doing it for decades. They just chanting mantras, which is essentially what it's for. Well, sometimes you can chant certain mantras to bring specific like vibes, specific entities onto your space. But if we're not diving into that sort of like, woo-woo stuff, it's just mantras. And mantras were kind of intended for that. You just keep sitting there and you're chanting the same things over and over and over, sort of like looping your mind. And because you do that, your mind kind of, it's sort of like your monkey mind has a certain like job to do. So if it's occupied, you technically could be free and you could achieve the same state of mindlessness, same state of like emptiness, where you create this space of just being, which is basically what like Buddha and all the like enlightened beings were trying to achieve. You're trying to achieve the state where you're not affected or controlled by your thoughts, by your actions or circumstances or whatever. So that's basically it. I love it. I love the method that the main character uses. Sort of like, I'm Todd Hewitt, I'm Todd Hewitt, I'm Todd. It's sort of like you loop your mind. It could work. Like, honestly, it's a good technique. However, I feel like it's not necessarily a path to empty your mind, because you entertain your mind to the point that it goes numb, rather than learning how to actually just like sitting there and achieving the state where you're like, when you're in this empty space, you're just in a vacuum. It's a little bit different. You could technically potentially achieve that through chanting mantras or any phrase actually, but I feel like again it's a little bit different method. But it still works, which is cool that they've showed it. So here you go. There is one way to achieve this way of controlling your thoughts and your noise. But yeah, it's sort of like, it's interesting to have seen other ways. Like, how did the mayor achieve that? I'm honestly curious. And also, if you as a scriptwriter, because you always have to think about what the audience could take from your material, because you have to be conscious about it. You create something that millions of people, maybe not millions, but thousands of people would have watched. So it's like, just give us a little bit more of give us a map. If you know a way to limit your thoughts, to control them, why don't you just give us a couple of methods to do it? Well, anyway. Another thing that really kind of sparked an interest is the extent of the noise. So the louder you think, the more emotional you get, and the bigger is the noise. Remember, there was a scene when Todd found out that a man in his community killed all the women, and he was busting out. He was like, oh my god, I cannot believe that. So he was going down this spiral, and so his thoughts became louder and louder, and eventually he was like, he walks out of the house and you could literally see, so like in post-production they've added all the noise and it was becoming bigger and bigger. So it's like this cloud now. It's not just like simple, I'm Todd Hewitt, I'm Todd Hewitt, I'm Todd. It's like, it's really a huge cloud of thoughts and things that he visualized eventually. But it's, the extent of the noise, how we react to things. You have to, that's why, by the way, if a person walks into a room, that's pretty much how some empaths could feel the person's energy. When you walk into the room, you can literally feel how heavy he is, which by this is meant sort of like how well he can hide his thoughts, or how well he can control himself and like utilize all the things that he knows. Anyways, it's an interesting, like, you suddenly, when you think really loud, you take up so much space. I love it. It's like scriptwriters, I feel like not just scriptwriters, but the author of the book also have done a good, just incredibly good job representing how thoughts affect our lives and the process of thinking as well. So that's another thing. And well, if we sort of like, the film is what it is. Like I said, it could have showed a little bit more of the training and how and why men trained and how thoughts could be used. Especially at the very end, the mayor says the noise could have been your power, which is like, it's such a cliffhanger. How? Like, why didn't you show it? It's all like, oh my god, come on. It's like you could use your thoughts in a very, very specific way, where like, how? Why didn't you show it to us? Yeah, I just, it drives me crazy. But if we kind of take a step back from this concept and the film in general, I feel like this film has tried to sell the idea that you have to narrow down your thoughts to the extent that you have no thoughts whatsoever. For example, like the mayor has. He has no thoughts. He has full control of it. He has a specific quote that he uses, just like Todd, but he uses a different quote. He says something around, I am the circle is me, something like that. So he still uses a little bit more of the mantra type of a manifestation. However, it's sort of like, it's not the ultimate goal, achieving this like thoughtlessness. Let me explain. I feel like if we eliminate all the thoughts, it would have been the same as if we eliminated the mind, which is not only pointless, but not possible, because we are trident human beings. We have mind, soul, and body. It's like Holy Spirit, and Father, Son, and all that. So it's like, we all know that. It's pretty obvious by now. But for some reason, the script kind of shows that if only you were to eliminate that, no one could have controlled you, no one could have manipulated you, no one could have known what you're thinking, etc., etc. So women, for some reason, are not affected by that. We could go into like, women are a little bit more spiritual, blah blah blah. I wouldn't be. It's like it's not a rule. I wouldn't. We all know that women could also be even worse than men in some aspects. But it's sort of like, it's an interesting. I feel like maybe they didn't pay as much attention to it as I have. sort of like the goal is to eliminate all thoughts. No, the goal is to learn how to control it, how to control your thoughts. Because imagine if all of us, every single one of us, were just like walking around thinking whatever we want to. It's honestly, it's like an illness. It's just, you have to treat it. You have to find a way to take it under control, just like any illness. So yeah, it's actually, you know, it could help your mind, but at the same time, to eliminate it completely, I wouldn't say that that's a goal, because your mind helps you to get through some complex situations, through any errors, through any, like, whatever. You're out there, you need to find food. If you're not thinking about it, you'd be like these, you know, just sitting there on the rock and meditating and everything is okay. Yeah, sure, that's a good state to be in. However, we're living in a 3D world. Unless you want to sit on a rock and literally meditate for a couple hundred of years, you need to use your mind. Your mind is your intelligence, and the fact that you refuse to use it, again, in the film they do mention it. You just had to learn to use it. Why don't you show us how? Why don't you dive a little bit, you know, into that concept? So anyway, yeah, that's my take on this film. I love how they've externalized the thoughts process. I love how they've, you know, managed to achieve that. And also, when I was watching it the first time, I was like, oh my god, like, how many thoughts are we thinking daily? Sort of like, is that a cup of tea? Is that my pan? Blah 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 blah. All this noise is just there. But I feel like they may have overstepped, like really worsened it for the sake of the writing. What I mean by that is, like, when he was running after the girl, the red-headed girl, he was like, redhead, blah blah blah, and he was running up the hill, and he was still thinking all this noise. And I feel like that's not possible. Like, when you're after someone, for example, it's just like when you're falling off the bridge, you don't think about anything at all. Your mind is empty. You're just there. You're just flying, you know. You're just trying to grasp on whatever is going on around you. So it's like you have to stop in order to continue this thought process. So yeah, that's an interesting kind of, I feel like they've maybe kind of, you know, what's the word? Have dived way too much into that. Like, that's an exaggeration. That's the word. Yeah, exaggeration. Well, anyway, that's my take on the story. I still love it. I still recommend it to every person I meet, because it's really brilliant, and I feel like it could, just on its own, without any breakdown, give you, you know, something to think about, and also to reassess your life and reassess the way you think and the way you manifest stuff. So yeah, I hope that made sense. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in a week.